Hi there, you're listening to the Perio Patient Podcast, episode number 48, and I'm entitling this one Vitamin D. And I want to give you some information about vitamin D that I think is important. And I'm going to cut through a lot of the details because this is a podcast for my patients, and I want you to be able to take the information and not be overwhelmed by it. But vitamin D is the sunlight vitamin. It is the one that if you get sunlight, it's made or produced in your skin. If you have a lot of melanin, darker skinned individuals get less vitamin D through sunlight. Most people today, they say, are vitamin D deficient or lack the amount of vitamin D that they should have optimally. Vitamin D is involved with the absorption of calcium and phosphorus, and these are components to bone and teeth. And the bone is a reservoir for calcium in the bloodstream, and calcium is important in the transmission of nerve impulses and also the contraction of muscles. So vitamin D is linked very closely with strength of bones, the health of nerves, the health of muscles to include the heart muscle, so it's healthy for that. And also it's important in the immune system. So it's helpful in neutrophils or white blood cells that actually are there and fighting COVID. So it's important that you have enough vitamin D. I am personally taking 4,000 international units of vitamin D3 a day. To take too much of vitamin D, you'd have to be up to like 50,000 units. So 4,000 units isn't that much. Now, beyond supplements, vitamin D is found in salmon and some other fish, also egg yolk and shrimp. And they fortify milk, cereal, yogurt, and orange juice with vitamin D. In other words, it's not naturally occurring in these milk, cereal, yogurt, and orange juice, but they add it to these items. So you'll see that when you shop for them, that they say vitamin D. Now, let me just kind of go through a couple of things, a couple more things, and then we'll be done. Number one is that they're showing, some studies are showing that vitamin D is linked to depression if you're deficient. So keeping an adequate amount of vitamin D, getting sunlight, that a lot of that has to do with vitamin D levels. So that's an important thing. And finally, I'm just going to tell you that from WebMD, that's a great resource I use all the time in studying topics like this. There was an article that was written in May of this year, but then updated in October, having to do with could having a healthy blood level of vitamin D help you avoid the intensive care unit and death if you become infected with COVID-19. More research suggests that the sunshine vitamin may play a role in how severe a COVID case could be. While the studies don't prove cause and effect, these studies support the notion that vitamin D might be protective against COVID complications, according to Vadim Bachman, PhD, a professor of biomedical engineering and medicine at Northwestern University in Chicago. He researched the link between vitamin D deficiency and differences in death rates in different countries. Among the newest studies, one says that more than 80% of 200 patients hospitalized with COVID-19 had vitamin D deficiency. Patients with lower vitamin D levels also had higher blood levels of inflammatory markers, but the researchers found no link between low D levels and how severe the disease was. Spanish researchers tested how prescription vitamin D could affect people hospitalized with COVID. Of the 50 who received it, only one needed the intensive care unit and no one died. Among the 26 who did not receive the vitamin, 13 needed ICU care, and 2 died. U.S. researchers evaluated blood samples from 235 patients admitted to the hospital with COVID and then followed them to see how they fared. Patients who had adequate vitamin D levels were less likely to become unconscious or die from COVID. After the study was published, journal editors published an expression of concern, and they stated that the sample size was too small, and the research author came back and agreed that they need to do larger studies, and that has resulted in a lot more studies going on even now. So we're going to get more and more information as these studies unfold, and they're being accomplished all over the world right now. So anyway, the other interesting thing, I'll end with this one, is if I'm placing a dental implant, we find that the placement of the implant into bone, there is an inflammatory response, meaning that when you put something into bone, there's an injury associated with that, and part of the response of the body is to send white blood cells called neutrophils and macrophages, and they inspect the implant. Essentially, they come over, they take a look at it, and they determine whether or not the body is being invaded by a foreign object and needs to be rejected, in which case the implant could show signs of problems and we end up with bone loss around implants. Or the macrophages give it the green light and the body then adapts to the new implant. And this can also be other implants, not just dental, but hips and knees and other joint replacements. But macrophages determine for the body that it's safe, and then the bone grows around it and it fuses to the titanium or whatever surface the implant is made of, and that's how it works. If there's an inadequate amount of vitamin D, then we don't get these white blood cells responding, and that ends up being a problem for the body. And so a lot of surgeons today are supplementing their patients before they start them with placement of a dental implant. They are putting them on a supplement of vitamin D. And so again, I would say that vitamin D3, you can get it at the local pharmacy or grocery store. Again, I'm using one that's D3, 4,000 units, which is 2 tablets a day. That's it. Have a great day, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye. I thought I saw an eye doctor on an Alaskan island, but it turned out to be an optical illusion. Now go fly.